Hey y'all, I'm Melissa Guerra. I am the kitchen wrangler, and I got a call this week that someone was trying one of my recipes and it didn't work. So I had to take the challenge and start it again. And of course, it's one of my very favorite recipes. Conchas, oh yes, conchas, which is such an amazing bread that we enjoy here in South Texas. They're very popular in Mexico, and if there was a prize for the most favorite baked item, it would be conchas, hands down. And so I'm going to share with you my recipe, which now works. It's 100% functioning. I love this recipe, and it gives me a lot of pleasure to share it with you. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get started on making some conchas. Now, to be honest, this is a recipe that is for advanced bakers. It has a few tricks. If you're a beginner though, you can still try it. One of the things that you'll notice is I don't have an exact amount of flour. If you're a beginner, what the first thing you need to know is making bread is an art and a science. Now, of course, you need the right quantity of flour, but flour, it has a tendency to change in weight depending on where it is. If you store it in the freezer, it might absorb a little bit more moisture. If you store it in the cabinet and you have a dry environment, say you live in Arizona or something, the moisture will decrease. So depending on where you are, whether you decide to measure your flour in volume, like by cups or tablespoons, or you decide to weigh it, you know, neither one is all that accurate. But after you make bread a couple of times, that's where you learn the art, and you will see when the dough has the exact right of flour. But really the best way is to show you. So again, let's get started. So you also might be wondering why these are called conchas, and the word concha means shell, and these have a really beautiful shell look, but at the top they have a little crunchy shell of topping. So I'm not quite sure exactly if they get their name from the way they look or that little topping. Either way, it's super good. So let's get started. The first thing that we need for our recipe is flour. Now, I like to use bread flour because it's very fluffy, it gives a really great texture, but you can also use all-purpose flour, but just know that the bread is going to be a lot more dense. So try to use that bread flour if you can. I like to weigh the flour because that's a little bit more accurate than using our system that we have here in the United States, which is scooping out flour with cups. You never quite know the exact amount of flour that you need because ambient humidity will change the weight or the volume of your flour. But if you weigh it and use grams, don't use ounces, use grams, that's actually just so much more accurate. So into a large bowl, we're gonna add some of our flour, we're gonna add some sugar and salt, and then we're gonna set it aside. Now it's time to prepare the liquids. We need 3 different liquids. We need a milk liquid, we need the yeast liquid, and then we need the eggs. This is actually called also a pan de huevo. And pan de huevo, you find that all throughout Mexico. It's the basis for so many different breads, like the Day of the Dead bread, which is pan de muerto, or semitas. They all use this pan de huevo base. So this, and huevo meaning egg. So this dough has a lot of eggs in it. So the first liquid is milk with butter. We need to heat it up on the stove and let the butter melt, but ultimately the milk needs to be about 110 degrees Fahrenheit. The next liquid we need is the yeast liquid, and we're just gonna add 2 packets of yeast to some tap water, and the tap water needs to be around 110 degrees. Usually the water heater in your kitchen is running about 120 degrees, so it's almost exactly the right temperature for activating that yeast. Now don't forget, yeast is a living organism, and yeah, it needs to get activated with warm water, but what really gets it going is a little bit of food. It's kind of like me, I love food, I'm always more active with food. So you give it a little bit of sugar, you stir it together, and we're gonna wait about 5 minutes and watch for it to foam. And that's called proofing, and that proves that our yeast is active. And so we have 2 of our liquids, so let's go ahead and take that back to our mixing table. And let's not forget, let us beat up those eggs with the egg yolks, make them nice and lemony colored and creamy, and we're gonna add those to the bread dough as well. Let's add some of the milk and some of the yeast into our flour bowl. So now we need to stir the dough and add all of the liquids, and you'll notice that it gets thicker and thicker and you just can't stir it anymore. That's terrific. Go ahead and turn it out onto a clean surface, and we're gonna add some flour and we're gonna start kneading it by hand. Now, Some of you may prefer to knead your dough in a machine, in your mixer, in a bread machine. That's fine, but I'm doing it the old-fashioned way where I'm kneading by hand. And yes, you have to knead it for 10 minutes. But don't forget, when you start stirring it in the bowl, when we first started, that actually counts as part of your kneading time. So really kneading it on the table is about, I'd say like 5 to 7 minutes. But the most interesting thing is that the dough starts to tell you when it's finished kneading. Like the texture changes so much. As you're kneading, keep adding just a little bit of flour at a time. And as you're kneading, you'll start to feel the dough changing from really sticky to kind of fleshy, kind of like the flesh of your arm or my tummy. It's kind of fleshy and it doesn't stick to your fingers anymore. And again, if y'all are beginners, this is the art part of making bread. You'll start to notice there's a springiness and the dough just comes together and you know you have kneaded it perfectly and then you have added the exact amount of flour. Like I said, it's not an exact amount of flour, it is what the dough wants. So terrific, our dough is ready. I have the wrapper from the butter that we used for one of the liquids and it has a little bit of butter left on it. So I'm gonna use that to rub the interior of a nice clean bowl and we're gonna put our kneaded dough into the bowl. We're gonna turn it a few times so it gets a little bit of fat on the outside surface and then we're gonna cover it with a towel. And I'm gonna put this into a warm corner of my kitchen. It's about 85 degrees Fahrenheit and I'm gonna let it rise for 1 hour. Now that the dough has risen for an hour, it is time to shape it. Let's divide the dough into 10 equal pieces and I'm gonna bring my scale back because I'm kind of obsessive about every single piece being exactly the right size. And if you're dividing it into 10 pieces, the easiest thing to do is to weigh the whole ball of dough, find out what that is, and then just divide it by 10. And so you weigh out each little portion of dough and so they're all perfectly the same. I like to shape the dough by giving them a little bit of kneading first and then I pull the rough edges underneath and I kind of pull around the top so that it has a nice smooth top. I've got a parchment lined pan. I'm gonna put all 10 pieces back on this pan and you can see that I ran out of space on my parchment, so I'm adding a little patch of extra paper here. I got all 10 of them on my cookie sheet. I'm good to go. So let's put another towel on the top of these bread pieces and leave them in the corner of the kitchen again to rise for another hour. Now we need to make our little concha topping. And I have tried to make this out of real butter and it was an absolute disaster. If you're the type that really doesn't like to use vegetable shortening, I'm so sorry, I have to tell you, it's really the only type of ingredient that works for this topping. I've never tried pork lard, I should do that at some point, but really vegetable shortening is the way to go. I usually just make this topping with a fork and I mash the shortening, more egg yolks, oh yes, and then I add the powdered sugar and then we need to add some flour so that the dough is nice and durable or crunchy. This is what makes it crunchy. So we're gonna smash it all together and so now we need to divide that into 10 pieces. Again, you can weigh it. There are 4 traditional colors for concha topping and then we have 10 pieces of dough. We are only making 10 conchas, but we have 4 colors. So I decided I was gonna make 2 white and then we're gonna make 3 yellow, 3 pink, and 3 chocolate colored. So let's set aside the 2 white, there we go, and we are gonna roll them into little balls. Let's make the chocolate colored ones, and I'm just gonna add a spoonful of dry cocoa. For the pink ones, we're gonna add a couple of drops of red food coloring, and for the yellow ones, we're gonna add a couple of drops of yellow food coloring. It all makes sense. And again, I'm coming in with the fork and I'm smashing them up, and they're perfectly mixed. You can use a rolling pin to roll out the dough for the topping, but I really prefer my old-fashioned tortilla press. I have a couple of sheets of plastic and I use a lot of flour. Do not be afraid to use as much flour as you need so that the dough doesn't get sticky. Add a little dough, you can sprinkle it across one of the plastic sheets, add one of the balls of the colored dough topping, put another plastic sheet on top, and then we're gonna smash it in our tortilla press, and look at that. We have a perfectly formed topping for our concha. How beautiful is that? Let's make all the colors. We have the chocolate, we have the yellow, we have the pink, those are my favorite, and we have the white, which was my grandfather's favorite. We have something for everybody. In order to put that little concha shape on top of the topping, you'll need a stamp. And I have an old one that I picked up in a mercado somewhere in Mexico many years ago, but you can actually get newfangled plastic ones online. So I'm going to put a link below in the comments that'll give you all of the tools that you'll need for making conchas and all of the ingredients so you can buy everything in one shot. Lightly press the concha stamp on top and we're going to make sort of a tic-tac-toe design on it. But you can also do this with just a dull dinner knife. You can just make your little tic-tac-toe across the top and you are done. So now they're ready for the oven. We're going to bake them for 25 minutes and they are ready. Look at the inside of that concha. Isn't it beautiful and fluffy? And it is absolutely perfect for a cup of coffee or a hot chocolate. Oh, I love these so much. And they never really last all that long. We always have a tendency to eat them really quickly. But if they do last for a while, you can always slice them and toast them. But I bet they don't last. I don't bet they don't last more than a day. Well, thank you so much for that recipe request. You know, if any of you all have any questions or you want to know of certain recipe from here in South Texas, you can always message me at help@kitchenwrangler.com, or you can message me on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, or even here on YouTube. I'm everywhere and I am always looking forward to hearing from you. I'm Melissa Guerra, I'm the Kitchen Wrangler, and I'm looking forward to seeing you here at the ranch again soon. Bye now.